This is Afternoons on ABC Radio.
Who's a fan of the roller coaster, of amusement rides that make you scream? Well, if you are, you're absolutely going to love this guy. His name's Burt. He's an amusement academic. Yes, that is a real thing, an amusement academic. And he spends his life cruising around the world, checking out amusement parks. Malcolm, hello.
Good afternoon.
That is crazy. It's a real thing, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I made the name up, but ultimately I'm studying amusement, basically commodified leisure rides and experiences, and it's pretty cool, I got to say.
Yeah, how did you get into that?
Look, I could spin a tale, but basically I was obsessed with roller coasters and amusement parks ever since I was a kid, and as I got older, I realised that it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it's worthy of investigation. So I started looking into it, and then I did a research master's about roller coasters, and now the PhD is about virtual reality.
Tell us about the psychology of the roller coaster. Why do we even want them in our lives? Like, why do we want to go on those?
Well, that's the funny part, right? That roller coasters are kind of invisible and visible at the same time, in that we often, because they're located quite a way outside major cities mostly, so it takes a while to get to a roller coaster. It's very expensive to get into these parks. We quite rationally, we think, wait for 2 to 3 hours to get on a 60-second ride to nowhere. Everyone just does that, and they don't think about it. But I thought maybe somebody should, because I mean they're just so they loom so large in our consciousness, and it's such an icon of fun. Like, I mean, when you think of a silhouette of a roller coaster, you see them on so many different advertisements and promotions and print materials, and it just symbolises fun. So I mean, nobody tends to think about that, but well, I am.
And adrenaline, like it symbolises, like there's something about that the fear of. It's the same with horror movies, right? Like you just get yourself so worked up that you just have a great time.
Very much. I mean, horror movies and really scary computer games are often really usefully compared to thrill rides, because I mean, thrill rides are tricking you into thinking that they're doing something really dangerous, that you're doing something really dangerous. In actual fact, they're incredibly safe. So they have to be promoted as really dangerous. Otherwise, you wouldn't want to go on it with your friends, or you wouldn't want to boast about going on them and your friends didn't go on them. But in actual fact, it's a trick. It's all a big trick. We get off at thinking, look at us. We're so bold and edgy that we need to now buy a shirt to prove to our friends what we just did.
We survived.
So it's kind of a way. We survived, exactly. But in fact, you're going to survive anyway, of course.
We survived this really safe ride. Aren't we amazing? Hey, but that was our childhood, right? Wasn't it? Like this is what we grew up with. But the next generation are going to grow up with a completely different scene of amusement park. Tell us what you've been looking into now when it comes to virtual reality.
Well, the virtual reality rides I'm looking at now, and I've just gotten back from a trip around the world for my doctorate, looking at different kinds of virtual reality rides, and I should probably explain what they are, but the simplest way to think of them is they're normal rides, roller coasters, drop rides, even swinging ships. We have a virtual reality swinging ship ride here in Australia. So that they're normal rides where you experience all the same launches and drops and loops and this, that and the rest, but there's a VR element laid over the top. So you're wearing a headset, those bricks that you put on your face, and you see, and in some cases hear, something else whilst you're still experiencing all the same G-forces and acceleration, etc. of the actual ride. So I've been on drop rides. I've been on multiple European VR coasters. I've been on that swinging ship I was telling you about down in Victoria. A whole bunch of different experiences, and it enhances the experience. It takes it somewhere else. That traditionally these are. I say traditionally, this is something that's been around for 2 or 3 years, and I'm talking about traditionally. Traditionally, these VR experiences have been on slightly aging rides, so they sort of revitalise them, give them a bit more juice. But now there's quite a few experiences which are completely created for VR.
All right, let's talk about the pirate ship, which is like a drop ride. Why do you need a visual component to that? Because isn't it just like losing your stomach? Isn't it like you actually have the visual component anyway because you just see yourself dropping? Right.
I mean, we can look at Dreamworld's Giant Drop, which is what is it, 400 feet? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's about 400 feet. And it's terrifying. I'm terrified when I go on that ride. But there's one in the US, or there's a couple in the US, which are significantly taller than that. So they're edging 500 feet, which are extra terrifying. But what VR does really well is it can make things seem even worse in that you can seem like you're, well, this particular one is in Six Flags, you're 1,000 feet high and you're basically above the city in a helicopter and you're being attacked by mutant spiders, as you do, and the drop right at the end is that your helicopter is basically being shot out of the sky. So you can essentially amp up what's already there. You can certainly be scared on existing rides, or, you can go into these very convincing virtual reality experiences, which can scare you even more by enhancing the drops and enhancing the very believable heights and acceleration, crazy stuff that's going on in the VR environment.
That is crazy. What if you can't handle it?
Well, I like to say, if you don't feel quite right, you can just, pop the headset off. But unfortunately, on the more aggressive VR rides, like the roller coasters and the drop rides, you really can't because they're pretty much strapped to your face. So close your eyes, I guess.
Just to make it even more terrifying. Now, you went on a water slide in Germany. So you're sitting on like a little blow-up thing. You're about to go down a water slide. You've got the VR goggles on. What happens?
Well, this water slide was actually, I worked with a company in Munich called Vegan Melzer, and they manufacture heaps and heaps of different kinds of water slides. And I was speaking to their head engineer, actually. It was in regards to my coaster film. I made a film as a result of the roller coaster research, and he saw it and we started chatting. And we thought, what's the stupidest, craziest thing you can imagine? Oh, right, it's VR and a water slide. All right, let's do it. So we ended up doing this. And it's essentially the same as before, that you're going on a water slide. We all know what a water slide is. But you have a waterproof headset on. And in this waterproof headset, you're in a canoe, and you're canoeing down an extinct volcano, quite normal, of course, and the volcano starts to go off. So this particular slide has 2 drops and 2 launches, and then there's a big splashdown at the end. So like I was saying before, we can enhance the sensation. So the drops are you're actually falling off waterfalls in the VR headset. The launches, you're actually being launched out of lava pools, and with the addition of physical effects like heaters that give you a little blast at that particular point in time. It kind of sort of feels like you're actually hot for a second, and then right at the end, unfortunately, you end up in a lava pool. These things happen, but you get another blast of hot air, and the tube actually shakes physically. And all these things, it's come from the literature. The literature says, if you have physical effects like water squirting in your face, or, hot air blowing in your face, or, the vibrations, as well as, of course, the physical drops and that sort of thing of the existing ride, it encourages immersion, which is really the goal of VR, to make you feel like you're wherever the headset is trying to make you feel like you are, and you can get it in the ride. The first time I actually went on the water slide, I was laughing at the end because it was really scary and crazy, and it was just this weird new hybrid ride form, which I thought was totally cool. So
you would have been on a high and so relieved to not be in lava.
Well, yeah. I guess I knew, but you...
right. You weren't that immersed.
Well, actually, you know what? I can point to a hilarious immersion incident, if you got a sec, that I had in Melbourne when I looked at the Zero Latency complex down there. Zero Latency is doing amazing things in VR, but they do... There's what's called room scale VR, where you can actually wander around your room, and that's translated to you wandering around some alien planet or whatever. Well, they do warehouse scale VR, because they have this humongous warehouse, and they're doing amazing things all over the world. But they have this huge warehouse in Melbourne where you go along. I think you book it for 45 minutes with a group of about 8 people, and you put on a backpack and you get a gun. And then in this environment, you can see all the people around you. You can't actually see them for real, but you can see like representations of them with their names above their heads, and you're fighting zombies. So basically, you run around fighting zombies with your group, and you've got to keep moving on to different missions, and it's very impressive. And the walking that you do in that world, it takes a little bit to get used to it, but you are then walking in the virtual world. So you're walking in the real world in this warehouse, but you're actually walking in the virtual world. And the cool bit was about halfway through it, you have to cross between these 2 buildings. You're in these big buildings in the city fighting zombies. You have to cross between these 2 buildings, and it's this really crappy bridge, like this deliberately bad dodgy-looking bridge that you have to go across to get across to this other building. And they had these fans in the physical warehouse environment, and these fans came on at that exact point. I saw the fans when I was walking in. I'm like, oh, maybe it's when it gets hot. No, it's actually when you do this particular bit. And the creaky noise, like that really just about to break noise that you hear, the fans blasting you, and the fact that the quality of the vision and the sound is so good, it honestly felt that was really there. And there was this big army bro dude that was playing with us, and he was like winning. And I'm terrible at these games, but it's fun anyway. But he was the one that was last across the bridge, and so his friends shouted out, "Hey, why don't you jump off? Just see what happens." And I was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." And he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it because it's so immersive.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Doesn't this just put the ghost train to shame? If you compare like the ghost train to like that, I mean, it's...
I think they're all valuable experiences. I mean, it's just a new, interesting, exciting, flashy kind of hybrid experience. But I mean, the ghost train has a real charm, I think. But if you're looking at, what's the flashiest and techiest, yeah, this is probably better in some ways.
Malcolm Burt joins us here on ABC Radio. He's an amusement academic, and he's been all over the world this past year to just check out amusements and how they're adapting to the VR world. Now, when I was in the Kimberley, we were doing a sort of a few chats around drone technology, sending out drones to specific locations, like say the Bungle Bungles or to the Karajini National Park or to these beautiful gorges where people would sit at home with VR goggles on, and they could, pay for an experience, and that would send the drone out, and the drone would go and fly you over, but you could be in your lounge room. Is that pie in the sky? Because it was kind of a dream at the time. Do you think that is coming for us as well?
I do, and it's actually something that I'm really interested in that the quality of the experiences you can have in your home are just, they're going through the roof. This one particular place that I went to in Florida, they're called Talon simulations, and they have what's essentially, it's a VR motion platform simulator. It's essentially a really cool looking chair, I suppose is the best way to describe it. You sit in it, you put on these high-end VR headsets, and it connects to this super duper computer, and whatever you see is perfectly synced with the movements on the motion platform. So whether you're driving a fast car, or you're on a roller coaster, or you're floating in space, whatever you're doing, this platform is moving perfectly in sync to help, again, trick your brain into thinking that you're really there. Some of the stuff that I saw with them and some of the other vendors that I went to, it is so realistic and so immersive, and there's so many theme parks and amusement vendors that are creating really realistic experiences that sort of bridge the gap between park and home, and it kind of leads to this freaky dystopian sort of future where you might just sit at home and experience a lot of these things. You were talking about drones before. There's pizza companies that are experimenting with delivering drones to your home. We're totally used to studying online and downloading all our music and movies online, buying everything online and just having it delivered to the home. And I know for a fact that there's quite a few large vendors that are looking at services where you can effectively visit theme parks from the lounge room. Basically, you can live your life from the lounge.
So the goggles and then the VR chair, and that's it?
Well, the cool thing about VR done properly is that it doesn't take that much to trick the brain into genuinely feeling that they're immersed. So you put it together with, this technology that's coming out now and whatever, is coming down the track, which, as always, will make whatever we have now look stupid. And it's not inconceivable to think that some leisure experiences may be easier, better, cheaper to just do at home. You may pay your Disney fee once a month as opposed to, and download all the content and walk around the park and get on the rides and ride them virtually, as opposed to sticking the kids on a plane and spending $1 zillion, going to Disneyland. I know it sounds crazy, but when you see the quality of some of these experiences, it actually makes you start to think, what is the future of leisure?
Oh, Malcolm Burt, this has just been absolutely intriguing. Those days of just being a sort of passive consumer are well and truly over, aren't they? If you're not doing it, if you're not contributing to it, interacting with it, it just doesn't have a future. Is that fair to say?
In some ways. I mean, I think just sort of reflecting on what I was saying before, that the traditional theme park, and I think traditional rides are never actually going to go away. And I don't want them to go away. I think that they're beautiful. I mean, they're fantastic. And when we go to a park, it's more than just, going and getting on some rides. I mean, it's a shared experience with friends. It's a chance to, get out of your environment. So I don't think that I'm hoping that this all virtual world will come along. I'm just sort of, seeing these things out there in the world and sort of musing on them, I suppose.
You'll still be on the ghost train. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
Totally.
So great to get you on the program. Thanks for joining us.
This is Afternoons on ABC Radio.